We are a welcoming congregation. We say that every Sunday. What does it mean? Is it a philosophy? Is it a policy statement? Is there an implied action agenda? What does that mean about how we are individually and as a congregation? How is it that you are welcoming? How is it that we are welcoming? What does it say about us and how we present ourselves to each other and to the world? What does it say about how we are with newcomers, visitors, seekers? On a scale of 1 to 10, how welcoming are we? What would it even look like to be a 10 on the welcoming scale? I'm not at all sure there is an easy answer. The UUA has a program called Welcoming Congregations. The program provides materials for congregations to discuss and reflect on being intentionally welcoming to LGBTQ folks. After study and discernment, congregations might then take a vote to declare themselves welcoming congregations. The declaration is, this Unitarian Universalist congregation welcomes and celebrates the presence and participation of people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and or queer. I remember attending the study groups years ago, and the UUCSV did in fact vote to declare ourselves a welcoming congregation in the official sense at an annual meeting in 2005. We should plan a celebration for our 10th anniversary next year. So, being a welcoming congregation is, in fact, a policy statement. But perhaps we've become a bit too blasé about our designation, welcoming, almost as if it has become a non-issue for us. We are delighted with the legal progress on marriage for same-sex couples and what that has meant for this circle of community. I suspect that there are many folk in our valley that are looking for a welcoming place to be who they are, and it is rather difficult to welcome the lonely, the lost, the seeking, if they don't know we're here. I do think a celebration is in order, if only to re-announce the fact that we are welcoming. I'm a joiner. I do groups. It seems to be in my genetic makeup to volunteer for things. Or say yes when asked to take on a project. Years ago, I was asked to be the baccalaureate speaker at Bucknell. The chaplain at the time, Ian Oliver, I asked him, why'd you pick me out of all of the people? He said, because you say yes to everything. I'm hoping it didn't mean he was having an especially hard time finding somebody to be speaker that year. I've been treasurer, vice president, president, Phoenix editor, and membership chair of this congregation. I perhaps have forgot a few. I've worked on auctions and other fundraising, on pledge campaigns. I especially remember those every member campaigns years. Been worship musician forever. Choir director, although I'm never quite sure I do much directing. Same at Bucknell, my place of work, search committees, task forces, and with my professional organizations, I serve on national committees. This affliction has been going on a very long time. I served on the board of the statewide religious coalition for the ERA in Pennsylvania. In Illinois in the early 1980s. That was when I was in grad school. I was on a statewide board. And I've served on the National Steering Committee for the Sanctuary Movement. Does anybody remember them? Yes. Yeah. So that's how I connect. I don't find it hard to feel like I belong somewhere. I just elbow my way in and make a place for myself. I guess what I'm saying is that I, and people like me, don't need too much welcome. I'll find my way. It's okay. My pattern is not everyone's pattern. Some folks don't join. It's not their model. They don't work well on committees, or they're simply not comfortable in that kind of organized or organizational space. Some folks are serious introverts. If truth be told, I actually fall right in the middle of the introvert-extrovert spectrum. That might come as a surprise to you. At least I was a gazillion years ago the last time I took the Myers-Briggs. I don't really like big parties. I'd rather stay home with my cats. And I really, really like being alone. So I get that introvert thing. Once upon a time, I think it was when I was serving as membership chair here, someone once explained to me that there were folks, perhaps among you, who will hear an announcement or read an invitation that asks them to participate or to get involved or attend, and they immediately assume that it does not mean them. This was a revelation to me. Some folks need to be asked personally, and perhaps more than once, before they believe that you indeed really want them. How can we be welcoming for folks who would rather not have us, or maybe just me, in their faces? I presume there are newcomers and seekers who would really like to sit in the back and be invisible, at least for a while. How can we be welcoming to the introverts? We probably need to ask them, but they might not tell us. Is being welcoming part of growing our congregation? Are we interested in attracting new folks to join us because we need them? A larger congregation certainly has greater resources, and I don't simply mean in terms of what more folks can give to the pledge campaign. Apologies, Scott. Greater resources means we can do more good in the world. Feed more hungry children. Stand up for more dignity, and all those other fine goals. Years ago, during one of those times when we as a congregation were discussing how to grow, we were also discussing whether to grow. Some folks opined that the congregation at that time was an excellent size. Everyone knew everyone else, folks were comfortable. Mild concern was raised about what we might lose if we grew to include too many other people. But it's also clear that organizations, including churches and congregations, need to grow, or at the very least, adapt, or they will wither. A more profound reason, a really critical reason, to continue to be welcoming, to extend hospitality, I think that folks need us. Folks need our message. It sounds really arrogant, perhaps, sort of full of hubris. But we know from the folks who are already here that this home, this spiritual community is important. Not to us, just to us, but may be important for very many other people. These next few paragraphs were taken from a sermon written by Marilyn Sewell entitled Radical Hospitality. Marilyn writes, Robert Putnam, the Harvard political scientist best known for his book, Bowling Alone, writes of the growing isolation of Americans. He has done research, and his conclusions have been surprising. He wanted to find out what happens when a diverse group of people live in the same area, as opposed to a homogeneous group of people, people who are like themselves. He found that when people are near people unlike themselves, they tend to hunker down. Not only do they not interact much with people who are different from themselves, but they don't interact with their own group as much. They watch more TV, they have fewer friends, and they are less likely to work on community projects. The level of trust and interaction is greatest when people are with others who are most like themselves. When these results came back, Putnam distrusted his conclusions, and so did his colleagues. So he spent more time checking out his data, and over 30,000 folks were interviewed. Seemed like a pretty decent data set there. And yes, his original conclusions were correct. Putnam, a dyed-in-the-wool progressive and very pro-diversity, nevertheless concludes that in the face of diversity, most of us retreat. Another study shows that the churches that try to bridge social divisions have a tough job. Paul Lichterman, in his book, Elusive Togetherness, says that churches that attempt to bridge strong social differences mean well, but are most often not successful. He says that when churches in his study try to do outreach, differences in social customs and in styles of relating make it nearly impossible for faith-based efforts to close the gaps. He says that there was a single group in his study that did succeed, and they did it by constantly evaluating and reevaluating what they were doing and why they were doing it in order to understand their own cultural underpinnings and those of the folks they were trying to reach out to. In other words, they paid close attention to how they were talking, how they were interacting, how they were engaging on a daily level. They learned to approach others as partners rather than as people they were helping. Success, in other words, lies not so much in ideology or organizational structure, but in the detailed content of our conversations. So what does that mean for us as a church? We are committed to being a welcoming community. We say we believe in the inherent worth and dignity of all, and yet we, as human beings, we have the same challenges that all other human beings have. We feel more comfortable when we're with people we know. We come to church, we gravitate to people we know. We feel less comfortable when we are with people who have different ideas, interests, different cultural assumptions. Tribalism is strong, and we need look no further than our church. This is me again. Sometimes someone walks through the doors on a Sunday morning, it becomes quite clear that they really don't know much about us. Carrying a Bible is a pretty good sign. Can we be just as welcoming to a seeking Christian as to a seeking Wiccan? I struggle with the comfort level issues that Sewell describes. I am most comfortable among the highly educated, relatively well-off, well-spoken folk. I am a bit of a snob. No, that's not right. I'm actually quite a lot of a snob about some things. One example will suffice. You know I sing barbershop. It's good, great fun. But I almost didn't start. I almost thought it was, too pedestrian for me. Beneath me. Me, I have a music degree. I sing the classics with the chorale. And the women who were singing barbershop, not really my type of people. I know now that I would have missed knowing some of the best people on the planet. The absolutely fabulous men and women, really good friends. If I'd let the snob in me rule, getting outside my bubble of academic friends has been a blessing. We don't see many folks not like us here. We're pretty homogeneous, mostly white, mostly well-off, mostly educated. Let's think about being ready to welcome the rest of the world, even those seekers carrying Bibles. Hospitality. In congregation speak, it means being sure we have coffee and treats after the service and that the potlucks are well organized. But the concept of hospitality is huge. Hospitality was regarded by most nations of the ancient world as one of the chief virtues and is often focused on the alien or stranger in need. The plight of aliens was desperate. They lacked membership in the community, be it tribe, city-state, or nation. As an alienated person, the traveler often needed immediate food and lodging. Widows, orphans, the poor, or sojourners from another land lacked the familial or community status that provided a landed inheritance, the means of making a living, and basic protection. In the ancient world, the practice of hospitality meant graciously receiving an alienated person into one's land, home, or community, and providing directly for that person's needs. Today we might add to that list of folks needing our hospitality, although the first list was pretty good. Unemployed or underemployed folks, those who've been cast out by their families or their religious traditions, folks with challenging situations regarding health concern or family dynamics. The idea that folks who lack community status need hospitality is powerful. How can we deliver on that ancient virtue? There's even a fancy Greek word that I just learned, philoxenia. It means love of strangers. It's a combination of the Greek word philos, love, and xenos, the stranger. It's a great word. I think we need to figure out how to use that. Hospitality is a way too big a task for a committee, even if they were really good at doing potlucks. I suspect that hospitality is all of our job. We are a welcoming congregation. On a scale of 1 to 10, how welcoming are we? What would it look like to be a 10 on the welcoming scale? What can we do? What do we need to do to offer hospitality and to ensure welcome?